In this episode, we're going to talk about an artist who became a worldwide, international rock sensation. But when you want to go back and listen to some of his earliest recordings, they're pretty hard to find. A lot of the albums were never ever released in the US, and I don't know, maybe some of them are out of print. But anyway, Marc Bolan went on to huge success when he changed the name of the group, Tyrannosaurus Rex, to T-Rex. This is his story. Let's drop the needle. The band Tyrannosaurus Rex started in the UK as a four-piece electric rock band, but they didn't last very long. And when they broke up, Marc Bolan took the name Tyrannosaurus Rex and the drummer, Steve Porter, who quickly changed his name to Steve Peregrine Took, from the Lord of the Rings character. Yeah, it was that kind of time in the UK. They formed a duo. Now, it was an acoustic folk duo that was very much into trippy folk tales and very much a product of the time. That's how T-Rex started. In 1968, Tyrannosaurus Rex releases their first album as the duo. And it's got a kind of wild title. The album is called My People Were Fair and Had Sky in Their Hair, but now they're content to have stars on their brows. It was a hit in the UK, reaching number 15. Marc Bolan played acoustic guitar and Peregrine Took played drums and percussion. Some of the tracks include Hot Rod Mama, Child Star, Strange Orchestras, Dwarffish Trumpet Blues, Mustang Ford, and Graceful Fat Sheba. Just a few months later, they released their second album, Prophets, Seers, and Sages, The Angels of the Ages. Again, Marc Bolan plays acoustic guitar on the album, and Steve Peregrine Took plays African drums, bongos, and kazoo. And the album fails to chart. However, in the UK, Tyrannosaurus Rex was getting some radio airplay. And then they released their third album, Unicorn, in 1969. Here, Marc's songwriting turns almost baroque, and the lyrics are pretty surreal. Here's some of the titles: Chariots of Silk, The Throat of Winter, Cat Black, She Was Born to Be My Unicorn, Warlord of the Royal Crocodiles, and The Misty Coat of Albany. However, tensions were starting to boil between Marc Bolan and Peregrine Took. You know, it's surprising to think about it now, but at that period of time, Marc Bolan was the kind of guy who preferred to sit at home and read and write poetry and lead a quiet life, while Steve Peregrine Took was exactly the opposite. He was into the London underground club scene and the drug culture. They were growing apart. And not only that, Took decides he's going to start writing songs. So he writes a bunch of songs, brings them into Bolan, and demands that they be part of the new album that they're recording. Marc Bolan refuses. He says the songs are trash. Obviously, this does not set well with Took. Things were unraveling very fast, but unfortunately, they were under contract to do a US tour as the duo. So they went on tour, and naturally, it was pretty much of a disaster. And as soon as the tour was over, Bolan fires Peregrine Took and hires Mickey Finn to be his new percussionist. And then in 1970, this new duo records their first album, A Beard of Stars. And this is the first album that Marc Bolan plays electric guitar on. The album hits number 21 in the UK. Songs include Woodland Bop, Pavilions of the Sun, By the Light of a Magical Moon, the title, A Beard of Stars, and Elemental Child. After the release of this album, Marc Bolan decides that the name Tyrannosaurus Rex is too unwieldy, and he's going to shorten the name just to T-Rex and release an album called T-Rex. And this album includes a mix of electric and acoustic songs. The US version of this album includes the hit single Ride a White Swan. Other songs are The Children of Ram, Root of Star, Is It Love, and Seagull Woman. And this is the first time that Howard Kaylan and Mark Volman formerly of the Turtles, now known as Flo and Eddie, sing with Mark Bolan. It may be the first time, but it certainly wouldn't be their last, as they contributed to many of T-Rex's hits moving forward. The album hit number 13 in the UK. In 1970, Mark Bolan decides to change his image a little bit and starts wearing flashy clothes and putting glitter underneath his eyes and making his stage act much more sexual. And the next album really reflects that. It's one of their better albums, probably my favorite T-Rex album, and it's called Electric Warrior. This album explodes. It's the biggest selling album of 1971. It's powered by the big hit, Bang a Gong, Get It On. It also features Jeepster, Cosmic Dancer, Girl, Life's a Gas. And this time, Flo and Eddie are all over this album, singing background vocals behind Mark and his searing guitar. With the success of Electric Warrior, T-Rex became a huge hit in the UK, and now they're finally getting some traction in the US. In the UK, fueled by Mark's wild stage performances and searing guitar work, the British experienced a phenomena they had not seen since the early days of Beatlemania. The kids at the concerts were going crazy, and the press dubbed it TRextasy. And it did catch the attention of one of the Beatles. Ringo Starr was a photographer, and he wanted to get into film. So he befriended Mark Bolan and decides that he will film 2 of their concerts. And he does. And actually it's got Elton John playing piano and Ringo plays drums on some of the tracks. He films these 2 concerts to release them as a film, and the film is called Born to Boogie, and it comes out on the newly established Apple Films banner. Now you can check this film out. It was available on DVD. I'm sure it's streaming, and I think it's even up here on YouTube. It's an interesting time capsule of what was going on in the UK. The next album, called The Slider, comes out in 1972, and the artwork, the photographs, are shot by Ringo Starr, shot the same day that he filmed the footage for the concerts that was in the movie Born to Boogie that we just talked about. The album contains 2 hit singles, Metal Guru and Telegraph Sam. But I also like Rock On, The Slider, Ballrooms of Mars, and Main Man. This album actually reached number 17 in the US. In 1973, Mark Bolan releases his 8th album. Can you believe it? It's called Tanks, and he totally changes musical direction. Gone is the Electric Warrior, and now he's got female backing singers behind him, and the music is all soul-infused music, and it contains no hit singles. But it does sell well in the UK. But Bolan's not done changing musical directions, so for his next album, he decides to go into funk and more soul, and the album is called Zinc Alloy and the New Riders of Tomorrow, which got a lot of bad publicity because people said he was ripping off Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. And the album actually was not even released in the US. At this time, Mark Bolan was having tax trouble. And like the Rolling Stones, he leaves the UK and lives in France. He puts on a lot of weight and is almost unrecognizable. During this period in 1975, he releases an album called Bolan's Zip Gun, but it didn't even chart. But not one to be held back. The very next year, he releases Futuristic Dragon, incorporating disco and soul music. It did contain 2 top 40 UK singles, New York City and Dreamy Lady. In 1977, Mark Bolan had lost weight, and he records what unfortunately is his last album called Dandy in the Underworld, and the critics refer to it as his comeback album. 2 singles came from the album, Dandy in the Underworld and I Love to Boogie. As a result of the success of this album, Mark Bolan was having a resurgence in popularity, and he even spoke about how he was looking forward to reuniting with both Peregrine Took and Mickey Finn and doing some new work together. But that never happened, because unfortunately one night when he was riding in a car, the car drove off the road and hit a tree. and Mark Bolan was killed instantly. Quite a journey for a guy who started out his career kind of as a hippie, trippy, folk singing guy that would talk about beards full of stars and fairies, and then transformed himself into a glam rocker to become the Electric Warrior, created the phenomenon known as TRextasy, moved into soul and even disco music. T-Rex as a band and Mark Bolan as an artist influenced a lot of musicians, and they had a number of hits through the years. So, of course, I'm going to have to say it. Thanks for watching, and go listen to Bang a Gong and Get It On, and keep a rockin'. If you like this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.